I do not know what tomorrow brings. All I know is how to shine through this skin, through these rhymes. I feel them aching in my pores, lifting, elevating to unwind. Free spirited as a bird, the delirious kind, the quakiest of centers, they tremor at the mouth with every retort. My hand shakes every time, reiterating to the nerves, I'm fine, begging their agreement by responding in kind. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Poetry Journal podcast. I am your host, Alex Murdoch, and hope everyone's doing fine. Thanks for checking out. If you're a new listener, welcome, and if you're a returning listener, thanks for your support and continually keep checking out my page. If that's the case, appreciate everything. We have a guest today. I want to firstly welcome my friend and artist, Kika. Welcome to Poetry Journal podcast. First, I want to take a little bit of time just to give you the floor and just, just speak on you. Just tell people what you do about yourself a little bit.
Yeah, thank you, first of all, for inviting me to your podcast. It's a great honor to be here. Yeah.
And
your words, and so this is a very exciting time to join you and further elaborate on your writings.
Yes.
So I just wanted to say that before I say anything about myself. I would term myself as an abstract, asymmetrical, geometric artist, which is a bit of a mouthful, but essentially I'm an abstract artist. So if you want to check out my work, it's on Instagram.com/Kika Pierides. That's Kika, Kika Pierides, as in pie and rice. And what you'll find is lots of colourful, very bright and bold work.
Which very colourful in the background at the moment as we speak. Kika.
Part of the mural I did, and there's pretty much a lot of that going on, but it's all about the innate geometries within nature and within our nature, without going into it too deeply. But you'll see, I think the thing I have in common with Alex here is there are a lot of universal principles in my work, and I delve into it's like the daily ongoings as well through, I do have an video episode called Thoughts on Walks as well, so I try to speak about the background of what I do too. But this is, I guess that would be a summary of what I do. Yes, and it's primarily painting.
Yes.
But I'm extending out to surface design as well. So at the moment, so I'm studying how to put my work across products too.
Yeah.
So this is my current thing. But painting on commission is a big thing for me. Yeah.
It's very interesting. I'm sure everyone will agree. With that being said, okay, let's get back to this quote. Just a disclaimer. I mentioned, I just kind of just wrote a little, just keeping people informed of what happened, and the fact that we actually did have a chance to discuss a little bit of this quote before to unpack it, but it's just the recording didn't go well. I'll put my hand up for that one. So the devices didn't work out well, so we ended up having to scrap the whole thing. But thankfully, Kika is such a great sport. She came back, and we're having a chance to do it again. So you might hear certain things that we might mention, before we did, yeah. Yes. So if you hear anything like that, just know that it's just maybe a little bit revisionist situation going on. But let me start by going through this quote second time, and I'll just give a little summary of what I think, and I really just want to get your point on what your take is on it after I'm finished, and then we can kind of go through a little bit. Okay. I do not know what tomorrow brings. All I know is how to shine through this skin, through these rhymes. I feel them aching in my pores, lifting, elevating to unwind. Free-spirited as a bird, the delirious kind, the quakiest of centers, they tremor at the mouth with every retort. My hand shakes every time, reiterating to the nerves, I'm fine, begging their agreement by responding in kind. And if you really want to get my take, like I said, I did my own personal unpacking, just expressing how I felt about this quote, what I thought of it. And so you just need to go back to the previous episode and you just kind of get what I was speaking on, if you haven't heard so already. But in essence, I guess I'll just let people know what I want people to take away from this quote personally. Things come to mind such as like, what is life if not for the journey? For me, I yearn to constantly live in the moments. The point being that you never know what will be your last, what day particularly will be your last. So it's almost like, advice, have no regrets. Take every day or live every day like it's your last, whatever life may bring, have no regrets. But Kika, you have some interesting take on it from the last time we mentioned. So tell me, what did you think? Like, tell us about your thoughts on this.
It's really interesting because when you read it this time compared to last time,
Yeah.
I almost feel like I could completely interpret it a different way. But when I sat down with it, my immediate snapshot of it was like, I looked at the first two sentences and I just thought to myself, when you say, I do not know what tomorrow brings, all I know is how to shine. I thought to myself, what it is to do my own thing, regardless of what is going on around me. As an artist myself, sometimes I think, I don't like watching news. I'm not in control of, what's going on around me. But sometimes all I know is how to really sit down and do my own thing.
Yes.
And I know that's one way of kind of shining in a way, because I can bring so much to other people by being myself and doing my, essentially doing something that can bring other people understanding and happiness, such as in my episodes, when I speak about what's going on in my life, like personal stuff, like even burnout, other people can relate to it. And I'm like, that's one way of shining, helping other people. And then as you continue through the poem, say, through this skin, through these rhymes, I feel the aching in my pores. Like, I think at the same time, I can't ignore my own suffering. It's not just about, so you've got the aspects of the joyous parts of sharing art, like as you can see in the background, you see these bright, bold colours. Then through the episodes, you hear kind of the suffering as well. So that there's the multiple elements, and but it's prevalent. I think being an artist, there's the isolated approach to, working, which can bring up feelings of both joy and suffering as well. And I think I love that in your writing, you've got such a really beautifully descriptive nature, like this, this aching in my pores. It really kind of brings it home to me, this kind of sometimes how, as as artists, we express something that may not otherwise be expressed, and you know, the pain, especially, like
yes.
um,
It's almost like sorry to cut you off, but it's almost like what you said. It's a bit profound because it's almost like it's less filtered, isn't it? Because you're able to be
yes,
so free with your words to an extent, through your art.
yeah, absolutely. And I mean, there's that naked approach to, you know, to expression,
Yeah.
which I think is so beautifully put across. And I don't know why it just hit me so much in this quote. You know, it just reminded me that there was so much of being an artist, and especially when you talk about free spirited as a bird, the delirious kind. And I think, you know, like, you know, in a sense, being an artist, there is this liberated approach to being, and you feel there is a delirious kind of liberated freedom to it.
There is,
through the suffering and the joy. But essentially, what I thought in the quotes is the comfort that your words bring. There was a like, when you write, the quakiest of centers, they tremor at the mouth. With every retort, my hand shakes every time, reiterating to the nerves, I'm fine, I'm fine. And I almost feel that you're comforting yourself through the words that you bring from within to being externalized. You know, that I'm fine. It's like you really know how to. I mean, for me, it's a revelation because I use pictures to do the same thing that you do with words. And to see someone put them down in writing, I think that it really describes, like, when I build a puzzle of my work, and I wouldn't put the words to it, but it's that feeling that I'm actually deconstructing something, and I almost feel like you're deconstructing from within and externalizing and, you know, comforting. Something like, I'm fine, and you know, begging their agreement by responding in kind. It's like self-soothing through art and the recognition of pain and joy. That's really what I got from this quote. You know, for me, it's like the artists and what they go through. And I don't know why, maybe it was the mood I was in that day, because we all see things
differently that day,
our moods. That's why when you read it today, I thought, man, I could see it totally differently, because yesterday I had such a different day, and you know, it's just so mood dependent, because you can really interpret it any which way, can't you?
Yes, it's true. You know, it's funny because, like, that's one thing I do get from what I write sometimes. It takes a while to sink in, even for myself. So I have to kind of give it a few days just to kind of, like, you know, I'm going to leave you alone. And so I would come back. And I was just like, okay, now I see where I was coming from with this. You know, I get it.
I get that. It's very abstract. Like, the work is abstract in essence, and I think sometimes writing is like that, because sometimes when I write something myself, I go away and think about it, and I'm like, did I really mean what I really wrote in that part? What did I mean by what I said? And I'm like, well, that was much deeper than I thought it was.
Exactly
I don't know if you get that.
Exactly that. And I think another thing that happens is sometimes you're writing it. Maybe it's because you're in the moment, but you're writing it, and then you might leave it. You come back to it later on, and you're reading it, and it's. I'm suppose in your case, you're looking at it, and your interpretation of it invokes so much, like so much emotion behind it, and so much thought, and imagery as well, where it's almost like, you know, you have flashbacks of moments that's kind of similar to what impression you're getting from the art that you're looking at. And I think that's something else. But we also mentioned something that we kind of, I feel, would agree upon, is the fact that, to an extent, you know, you have different types of artists, but in a sense, it's almost like art in general is kind of universal. just in the sense of like we have different forms of expression. Like say, I write, but you paint. But art is art, and so it's almost like there's a general kind of understanding between artists.
Yeah.
When you're breaking that at the end of the day, it's almost like we're all trying to say similar things. We're all trying to express certain pain that we're going through, certain trauma. But it's just that it's so much more easier going through your art. And obviously that's why you do it, because it's therapy. And it just breaks it down so profoundly that you kind of you have fun while fun on the way to breaking it down in a sense, or creating that art.
It's very akin to life. It's like beautifully laced, but underneath there's a lot of pain.
It is very much. Yeah. That's one thing we can agree on.
Sorry?
I'd say that's one thing we can agree on. just that word.
Cool.
But I did have a question for you.
Yes.
I think we were speaking. I wanted to ask again, just to kind of get your expression on it. Like, what's your concept on the idea of time? Like, do you believe in the concept of time?
No, I think it's a brilliant question. I don't believe in the concept of time because I think it's a system that we created that we can hold ourselves accountable to, and it kind of works on in a worldwide basis. It works for business and the running of things, but essentially we created a concept just like, well, interestingly enough, I saw this flowers exhibition yesterday, and I was reading about how we created the emotions and the symbolism around the idea of giving each other flowers for celebration.
Yes.
And it became so, that idea, like time, to me became like almost like something you ignore because it's such a given. It's a standard.
Yeah.
And I think it's taken for granted that that's the concept, it's an abstract concept. But it doesn't really exist. It's just something we made up,
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Wrong things. Yeah. How about yourself?
I'm a bit skeptical, like you. I think we're in the same boat, and just from the idea, just like we just kind of make things up just to kind of have certain. It's almost like. It's almost like you're putting a net on reality in a sense, where you have the measurements, the metric system, etc., etc. So it's maybe in a sense it's not a form of expression, but it's just in the technical reality, real sense, where you're not just gonna be like, okay, go over there and form a line. You say go 10 meters. Form this, that, you can be specific with it. But in terms of like the form of measurements, like say, somebody run 100 meters, you're not going to say, oh, they just ran really fast. Do you get what I mean? You can actually break it down to say like, they run 100 meters in 9 seconds, etc., etc. You have the breakdown of the first 10 meters, all 10 meters, the 10 meters of the 100 meters, and you have the 30. You get what I mean? It's just like, it's just a way, it's almost like you're painting reality in a sense with time.
Yeah.
But it don't necessarily, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's actually real. It's just, but to your brain, it doesn't matter. It's another form of interpretation. And so through that, it's almost like you give yourself, it makes it easier for you to kind of grasp your reality in a sense, if that makes sense. Do you get what I mean? So,
100%, yeah, totally makes sense. It is just the way things are painted.
Yes, exactly. So that's one thing that really. So the other thing I was just thinking, like, so with that being said, like, do you believe in Do you feel like there's a thing of such a thing as wasting time?
I think it's like the other question. On the surface, you could
Yeah.
say there is time,
Mhm.
and then on the on the what do you call it, on a deeper level, I don't believe you ever waste time, ever. There's always a reason for everything that happens, and I think from my own experience, sometimes I might get annoyed because I want to do so much stuff. I love doing stuff, but then whatever you do contributes to who you are.
Yes.
And I don't think you ever waste a moment. You always learn something, and if you're vigilant and attentive to what you're doing,
Yes.
then you will see why things are panning out the way they are. On the greater scale of things, and I don't think anything is ever wasted, like, for sure. No. Especially when you break it down, and I mean, I love this whole, I think you get onto it in your second quote a bit, but like the whole thing about the mind and the DNA of the mind.
Yes.
When you break that down in our evolution,
yes,
then nothing is wasted, like ever, because we're immense, and what we go through, like, historically, is
it's so much.
Yeah, it's like nothing can be, like, our basic habits are not even wasted. They're like virtually inherited, and you break it down and you're like, well, okay, I do this like that because XYZ, then I can change this to be more like what I want it to be, and
yes,
you can like break it down, and it's really interesting.
There's something profound about what you said. It's almost like, with that being said, it's almost like time is almost like segments of time is like a puzzle, and so as we know, every puzzle has every piece of puzzle has a piece to play. So it might not fit where it was unraveled, where it happened, but it probably fits somewhere maybe nearing the end in your midlife. Do you get what I mean? It's almost like experience is there's no you can't put a price on it. It's priceless because it holds so much weight, you know. So I thought that was interesting that you said that.
Thank you. Totally. And I guess in the sense of what you said, I guess there is that saying that they always say nothing is ever wasted as well, and that what you learn in one part of your life you can use later on. Right? I totally agree with that. Like, totally. Like, when you were talking about, it's almost like sequencing.
Yes.
You use it later on, but it just comes out in a different form.
Exactly.
Which is really amazing.
Exactly. You know, it speaks to wisdom as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Somebody asks you a question, but if you've never really been through it, how are you going to answer it?
Yeah.
You know, you have to go through something to know about something.
100%.
Okay. With that being said, let's move on to the next segment.
Sure.
Okay. Here we go. This is the next quote. Plasticity of my experience. Let it be for me to unfold in the thought of the funkiest days, the ever so daunting collective, the coldest maze, earth graze, in contemplation of the cruel moulding, temptation to keep the cold in, never again ponder thy warmth. Bring me close to my undoing, closer to my unrest. An undead state, it punishes the soul, but does wonders for my glow rate. Such a daunting state, masking madness, standing candid, sincere in the absence of grace. And to sum this quote up,
it's 11 hours.
It is, actually.
It's 11 hours.
I love that. I've never heard anyone say that about an o'clock.
Yeah, you learn something new every day, I believe that. So with this one, I'll just break it down like this. It's all to do with I believe, of course, it starts with doing for yourself. Sometimes it may be a late situation to configure or reconfigure, but those pivotal moments, I believe, are less daunting when you create a way personally for yourself, a means of solution, if only for an escape. It is seriously underestimated, in my opinion, how much a little breath of fresh air can do for oneself. To come up and over the clouds, feel the wind and gasp in the heavens before you tread through the roads of hardship. It's kind of like what I was saying, when Superman is absolutely low on energy and, he just goes up to above the sky and he just he just takes all that sun in and it's like, oh, I feel good again, so that's kind of like what I'm kind of going towards when I say it's underestimated how much a little breath of fresh air can do for oneself, when you're going through something. Hoping that one day it will lead you, in a sense, back to the pearly gates where things are less bothersome, less daunting. And this is all, in essence, to point to the point that knowing yourself is so important. That's the only way to fix your problems. When your situation throws a span in the works, you have the ability to be your own mechanic, so to speak, and work through your journey. So that was kind of like my breakdown of
Very cool. I was just thinking about how different.
But that's good. That's good. So tell us about your breakdown. What do you think about that?
So I think when I broke it down, I was breaking it down like bit by bit. So when you said plasticity of my experience, let it be mine. I was thinking about how sometimes our experiences escape us and memories either escape us or someone says or does something to alter them.
Yeah.
But we kind of want to, just, what's that later on? But I was just thinking about is the concept, like the initial opener as a concept. You said to unfold in the funkiest of days. I said, nevertheless, we wish to hold on to them.
Yes,
So maybe there are happy times that we kind of wish to cherish, or something like painful. There's something painful, and how that we hold on to, but we need to kind of. Sometimes maybe we need to like hold on to it because we haven't molded it. Sorry.
Yeah, I would say so. You just, it comes with growth. Knowing, like, the more like mature you get and experience you have, the quicker you're able to let go of that. But it takes time, and it takes going through that painful situation to understand that it's not good for me. It don't mean me well, and so eventually you get to just like, okay, let me leave that alone, or let me just go through this so I can leave it alone.
Yeah, unpack it, really.
To unpack it.
I think that's why we hold on to the pain sometimes. That hasn't been unpacked properly.
That's right. There's so much to it.
And I guess with like joy, it's so easy to let go of because it's already been unpacked. It's like, oh, it happened. So,
It's so light. There's
yeah.
no people don't remember it because it don't carry any weight.
Yeah.
Do you get what I
When
mean?
it said we need to extend the celebrating and release some of the pain quicker.
Exactly. You know?
Yeah. Let me say, where was I? Okay. The ever so daunting collective, the coldest maze, earth greys in contemplation of the cruel moulding, temptation to keep the cold in. And I think this is again the same thing about holding on to pain.
Yes.
And not knowing how to let go of it. So it's exactly what we just spoke about. But then it starts, I think the quote starts to change. And that's when I started to think it was a bit more of a love story, because it said, never again ponder thy warmth. And I was like, okay. And I thought this may be some kind of memory that you didn't want to let go of. And that's why I laugh when you talk about your interpretation. I was like, you say, bring me close to my undoing. And I was like, oh no, what happened? It sounds like a really bittersweet memory and, some kind of, close to my unrest and undead state. And it's like that pain of feeling alive, but like truly alive when you're in love, but then you're also in pain. So it's like,
yeah.
And I was thinking,
you're almost numb. Close to being numb.
But also close to the truth. Like there's a lot
no
of
doubt.
truth in there. And you're like, but then there's also things like sometimes in love that we don't like about ourselves. And we get really close to the truth of them and we're like, damn it.
That's right. Yeah.
I hate that. So I really love this situation. But now I have more work to do on myself. So it's like...
yeah. And that's the thing, the work sometimes is like, I've got all this to go work on now. So, I thought I came so far.
It's also because when you do it, you're like, oh yeah, this was for a good reason. And you're like, I was never meant to be in this anyway. So
yes, indeed.
But this is, I think, basically with this quote, I think it felt like when I read it, it was a bit of a love story and holding on to the memory of and the pain of.
Yeah. And
kind of delving into that. And just wanting to kind of hold it for a bit longer, essentially. Yes. Just holding on to the memory and the reality of life, really.
No doubt. Yeah. It's kind of like what was, I think I mentioned this before when I was just like, with everything that you were just speaking about, in terms of like knowing it's not good for you, but it makes you feel so good at the time. Do you get what I mean? It's just that that high that you get.
About the woman's heels.
Yeah,
it's like they're so painful.
Yeah, the woman's heels is just like, she was walking and she looked so good, but her toes are absolutely killing her. But she looks so good, so it's just like, I feel good and I look good, so the pain is worth it. Do you get what I mean? Until in the end, maybe she develop a callus on her toes or something, or bad circulation. That's the only time she really think, okay, maybe I need to stop this. Find a more healthy hobby. Do you get what I mean? It's just like you have to wait until you get to that point where it kind of threatens your health or your well-being in some way, or like maybe you come to terms with what the situation is before you can actually let it go or move on and do what you were supposed to do and do the right thing in the first place for yourself.
So it's essentially it's come around to personal development.
Yes. It does come around to it in the end, yes. Here's a question for you. How do you cope when you're going through something? Do you prefer to do it by yourself, or would you prefer to, have support, etc., with you and stuff like that?
I think essentially, like conventionally, I've always been someone who very much does it on my own. But then, like, I realized as I got older and after I saw a lot of people pass away within my network, like my family network,
Yeah.
I kind of saw why you need to like really lean on, like I think it's good to have a bit of both,
Yes.
essentially. So go outwards for support, and then but also come back to yourself, like as an artist. That's how I see it.
Yeah.
So but there's a lot of unpacking that kind of happens as an artist anyway.
There is.
But yeah, I think what I do is I really do lean on both nowadays, for sure, 100%. How about yourself?
I think by default I would be that person as well, where I would just be by myself, or I'll try to tackle it on my own. But I think as I've matured over the years, I've started to kind of understand that it don't necessarily always have to be me. You know, it's not a weakness in a sense to allow somebody to, shit, Zoom just ended. You find how you deal with things in a sense, how you cope with situations, and like I was saying, for me, it naturally by default I would want to be that person that's just like by myself, just handle the situation by myself. But as I mature and I understand a bit more, it's almost like I understand there's no weakness in actually having a support or allowing people to help you. In fact, it's actually a good thing. There's strength in that when you actually you allow people to kind of help you to unpack your trauma and your situation. And that's why in this day and age, especially during, like, say for example, the pandemic, therapy, etc., certain things like that, where you get like external support, is so important. Even in the situation, go on, sir.
No, I think, and sometimes you need a bounce back to actually understand things that you don't know about. So I think like burnout was huge during pandemic, especially. And I think that kind of dissemination of knowledge helps you to unpack your own traumas too. You know more about what it entails to you. So yeah, I think that's the other aspect as well. Yeah.
Totally. Yes. So just being in that situation where like you can actually, like for example, like I was saying in the like say the lockdown, right? And what I understand about trauma as well, sometimes it's, as they say, it's a real thing where it's the person that's closest to you that you're gonna hurt. So that's why it's so important that you actually get somebody, maybe pay somebody to help to unpack your situation, because the ones that are closer to you, they're always willing to help. But there's a dual relationship going on now where it's most likely going to be overly compromising, and there's going to be a situation that's going to be a bit too hostile. So it's probably best you have like an external person, somebody from outside, come. And that's why therapy is such a it's so recommended, because there's less of a compromising relationship with that person, and they're obliged to actually just be candid and just be objective with you regardless, because they have no dog in the fight. But this is a job that they take seriously, they're passionate about, so obviously they care about your well-being. So these are certain things I think that speaks on that situation. Another thing that we mentioned was the whole idea of plasticity, in terms of like the brain rewiring itself. It's almost like an adaptation to you trying to figure out your situation, in that sense. So that's something else that kind of speak to, somebody trying to find a way, trying to figure out, trying to be better or trying to feel better by addressing your situation in a sense, and I guess it's all interrelated. So by doing all these things, you become, through growth, you get wisdom, knowledge, and it just makes you a better person in a sense. So that's kind of like where I'm going with that.
Rewiring in the mind and it's a huge thing, and improving self-improvement, really, really huge. And also I get like the artistic input too.
Yeah.
I think these are all equally important.
Yeah. I mean, I think we both, through our work, it kind of aids with a lot of our problems, our situations. With that being said, did you have any questions that you wanted to ask?
Yeah. I actually wondered, I think in the first quote, I think I asked you, what if you do you self-soothe through your, I think it's on the same thing as the previous question you asked me, do you self-soothe through your words? Yeah.
I do. I think I do it more than I care to imagine, in a sense where it's almost like by default I would look to the words, and sometimes it's almost like say I haven't written for a little bit, and for me that's probably like a good few days or something like that. But it's almost like within that time, maybe a lot of things happened, and I decided finally catching up with writing poetry, and I realized, oh, hold up. You tend to have a lot more to say, more than usual. It's almost like you're trying to catch up with yourself because you haven't given yourself the chance to have the outlet, in a sense, to kind of like really just approach certain things that might be on your brain, on your mind anyway. And so when you finally do, it's almost like you have a lot to give and say, and that's how art is. Because I'm sure, even like you, I'm sure you find that in a situation where you're going through something, that's when you're at your most creative.
Oh yeah. Oh my god. Yeah. It's like ridiculous the amount of work you can pump out when something bad has happened. It's like very bittersweet because it's going to come around.
It is going to come around.
You're using this situation, but it's so beautiful.
Exactly.
That's why I say it's laced. Art is laced.
Exactly. You know what I mean? So that kind of speaks to pretty much everything that we go through, as artists. Of course, in different ways, but when you really think about it, it's kind of like it's so similar. Like it's so similar, and when you really interpret it down to the T, like we can all kind of relate to each other, in a sense. So.
I want to ask you actually. Could you imagine yourself doing what you do another way, like not through writing?
I think it's hard to say that I would choose not to do it through writing. It's hard to choose to say that I would do it not through writing, but maybe if, say, I was a chef or something like that, you know what I mean? Because that's another form of art in itself, like culinary skills, etc. When you've mastered it, it's almost like that's where I think that's where art begins, after mastery.
Oh, 100%. 100%. Actually, one more thing, actually, because I've listened to quite a few of your episodes,
Yeah.
And I think what would be really lovely for your listeners
Yeah.
is if you, I think last time you told me a bit about what you cycle between in your life, and just a bit more about yourself, like your background, and just like briefly, and what you like to. You said you cycle between certain things, doing certain things in your life, and
Yeah.
your occupation.
Oh, yeah. So I would do care support work, and I have an athlete background, so I used to be fully into athletics, and I did that for a good few years, like close to a decade, um, where I was just competing, just like on regional, nationals, that kind of thing. I would go sometimes compete in Europe, stuff like that. So, and people don't understand that a lot of athletes are really creative. And I think I was speaking to somebody about it the other day, and it was just like, when you think about what it takes to be an athlete, and just, it's a lot of figuring things out. And you have to be creative to do that, to get anywhere in athletics, in the sense of like, to run fast, you have to be creative because there's so many facets to it. And it's almost like you're constantly rewinding yourself, rewind your brain. And so that's part of the whole discipline of it. It's because the body, follows the mind, and it's almost like your body becomes so drilled and disciplined that whatever your mind says, even if you feel it, your body reacts. Do you get what I mean?
Like, you teach it to based on the command, and
Based on the
but you're
command.
always testing your limits at the same time.
Always.
So you have to creatively surpass your own limits, but then also teach yourself how to do it. So the creativity comes from pushing yourself into the unknown all the time whilst commanding yourself. So you have to be really kind of a solopreneur all the time.
Yes. Exactly.
Brilliant.
You're just taking yourself to different realms all the time. And, I think that's kind of like giving me so much awareness, as well as like just being intuitive with yourself. You learn so much about yourself. And I think maybe that's aided me in mastering what I do, or trying to master what I do, in being better, and just kind of like being able to speak more candidly, honestly, being objective about myself. And so I would just put that into my art.
Yeah, nice. I really love that. It's really inspiring. I mean, and I guess working in a care home, I would guess that you meet a lot of people who are much older, and then you've also got that balance of a lot of life experience, having conversation with a lot of people who've been through so much.
Yes.
And that must be really inspiring as well. I mean, what's your take on that?
Oh man, that's another facet of the growth, in a sense, where you have, when you see people going through certain situations, especially mentally, and to the point where you see it, you realize what their physical condition is because really, it's almost like it's how their mental health kind of like is showing symptoms, physical symptoms, in a sense, things like that. And it just kind of allows you to kind of break down, just be a bit more in tune with what the situation is, and how mental health, it kind of it develops and it grows, and it expresses itself, undoubtedly. Obviously people are not aware, but they're too close to see, maybe. But when you're out looking in, like I said, the therapist, you kind of have a bit more of a bird's eye view, where you can see a larger scale or a bigger picture. And that's intuition in itself, you know and it allows you. You can kind of internalize that a little bit, and it makes you understand yourself at the same time. So there's a little bit of everything. I try to take a little bit of everything from here and there and there because it's all experience, and it's at the same time it's still my experience. So that's what's unique about me. I can speak on all those things, through art. So it's a journey for sure. It's a journey.
Really admirable, like diverse backgrounds that you're coming from, inputting in your work. I think it's really fascinating. So thanks for sharing.
Well, I appreciate you. And of course,
I'm sure the listeners would love that.
Yeah. I haven't really, I guess, expressed much about that. So it's interesting to speak about it for sure.
Yeah, it's very rich. And your experience is very rich and it's very inspiring, for sure.
Yeah, well, I try to see how it goes.
I try to be who I am.
I try. But I also appreciate what you do, and you seem to be so enshrined into your work, and I think that's something to be admired as well, because that shows discipline, that shows love, dedication, and you're good at what you do. So it's just like, and I can see the growth, So that's powerful. So I always admire that about you. That you're so fully in it.
Very kind. You're very kind. Thank you for that.
But I also want to say thank you for coming through and speaking on things, being honest, and with your expression. And hopefully you can come back sometime soon. You're always welcome, as you know.
Thank you. I'm sure we will find something amazing to talk about next time.
I'm sure I'll think of something for sure.
I bet you will. Well, thank you for having me. It was a real pleasure, honestly, and I look forward to hearing from your listeners.
Did you have something you want to speak on? Something you want to promote that you're doing right now?
No, I think at the moment if people would love to check out my page again, it's instagram.com/Kika Pierides. That's Kika Pierides. Then I think I share a lot of my journey on there at the moment. I've been quiet because I'm doing my surface pattern design course, but in general, I think you have to come along and see it to see if it's your vibe.
Okay,
and then,
cool.
You know what I mean? It's like, come along for the journey and sit with it. That's what I would say. Sit with what I do. If you're into fine art, if you're into colourful things and you like hearing authentic journeys, then come along and sit with it for a bit and see if you vibe with it. And we can have a chat. I'm very open to having a chat. Yeah.
That's very cool.
And if you're an artist, and share your journey with me. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all
then
good.
You can really have a chat.
Sorry?
That's it, then you can really have a chat.
Yeah. Definitely. All backgrounds welcome.
All backgrounds welcome.
No discrimination. No, but that's it really. Just open invitation.
Cool. I guess I'll just say that, I'm having my third short story out, Into the Abyss, Volume 3. As you know, Poetry Journal out right now. And I'm supposed to be doing an open mic today, I will be at this place for a while. So, like, second week of every month, it's called Grow. I just want to shout out to them because they've been really. It's like an artistic type of place where you go and like majority of people that you see there are artists, and it's really cool. Like, and everybody's just it's just a great atmosphere. So it's a place in Hackney called Grow, and they have like a artistic get together, and I'm allowed to do my open mic and just get together with everybody and just congregate, and it's just really cool. So I have that going on, and you can find me on Poetry Journal on Instagram at Poetry Journal. That's PO3TRYJOURNAL. And of course, my books are available on Amazon. I am Groot poetry is a keyword you can search for. But yes, of course. But of course, like we said, you can always reach out to either of us and have a conversation. Always welcoming people to speak and express how they feel about our art, or even to speak about what they're going through or their art. I think that's a great finish right there. But like I said, Kiko, thank you for coming through. I couldn't have done it without you, so I appreciate you.
Literally.